Asiana Airlines' Boeing 777 passenger plane was heading towards the runway at San Francisco Airport for landing. It looked like a normal day landing, but as the plane was getting closer to the airport runway, all 307 people on board were approaching the jaws of death. Instead of landing on the runway, the plane's tires touched the ocean waves. Seeing death right in front of them, the pilot tries to lift the plane upwards. To find out what happened to this plane and the people on board, stay with us. If you're told that your flight pretty much flies itself for over 90% of the time, you might be surprised. You might be wondering, if the plane flies itself, what does the pilot do? But that's true. I hope that many of you have heard about the Autopilot Mode. Modern planes are typically flown in two main ways. The first one is the manual mode. During this mode, pilots manually control the plane's speed and direction while flying it. The second one is the auto mode, or autopilot mode. During autopilot mode, a centralized computer system in the plane, with the help of various sensors installed throughout the aircraft, automatically controls critical systems like altitude, direction, and speed to fly the plane on its own. In today's modern jet planes, the autopilot mode is highly important. Besides critical systems like the navigation system, GPS system, landing gear system, and engine control system, there are over 150 different systems in the plane that help this heavy aircraft fly smoothly in the air. Controlling all these systems to fly the plane is a very risky and exhausting task, and in such situations, making a mistake due to fatigue and pressure is quite easy. But at an altitude of 30,000 feet in the air, there's no room for any mistakes. That's why, during most of the flights, the autopilot mode is engaged, ensuring that the plane flies safely without making any mistakes. As we all know, weather changes during the flights, impacting the plane's speed and direction. In such situations, pilots can take control of the plane by disengaging the autopilot mode to handle any unexpected circumstances. To make it even easier to understand, think of it like a car's cruise control. It maintains the car's speed by adjusting the engine power and brakes. But as soon as the driver presses the brake or accelerator, the cruise control disengages, and full control of the car goes back to the driver's hands. Exactly just like in a car, in a plane's autopilot mode, the pilot can take control at any time and manually adjust the plane's altitude or speed. Information about the auto mode plays an important role in today's accidents, helping to understand the circumstances leading to them. Let's get back to our case study for July 6, 2013. Around 4 in the evening at Incheon International Airport in Seoul, South Korea. Asiana Airlines Flight 214 was getting ready for its regular trip from Seoul to San Francisco. This is a long, overnight flight from South Korea to the west coast of the US, which takes about 11 hours to complete. A modern Boeing 777 registered as HL7742 was given to Asiana Airlines in 2006. From then until now, over 7 years, this plane has completed a total of 37,000 flight hours. Due to its strong safety record, powerful engines, and capacity to carry over 300 passengers, the Boeing 777 has become the first choice for airlines in the 21st century for long-distance flights like these. For such long flights, this plane can cover a journey of up to 13,000 kilometers in one go without stopping. On that day, a total of 307 people were on board the plane, including 291 passengers and 13 crew members. About half an hour behind its scheduled departure time, the plane takes off from Seoul Airport at 5:04 in the evening. On that day, the plane had 3 captains and 1 first officer on board. Captain Lee Kang-kook A 45-year-old captain was in the position of main captain and seated in the front left seat of the plane. Captain Lee Kang had 9,793 hours of flying experience. However, Captain Lee Kang had only 43 hours of experience flying this type of Boeing 777 plane. That's why 49-year-old Captain Lee Jiang-min was seated in the seat next to him, acting as an instructor to supervise and provide training to Captain Lee Kang. Captain Lee Jiang had a total of 12,387 hours of flying experience. With 3,220 hours of Boeing 777 experience, Captain Lee Jiang was an experienced captain and a skilled flight instructor. The flight from Seoul to San Francisco, lasting approximately 11 hours, typically requires the appointment of 2 additional relief pilots to ensure that all pilots can take breaks during the long journey. That's why, in the cockpit's rear seats, 40-year-old First Officer Bong Dong-wan and 52-year-old Relief Captain Lee Jong-ju were on board, serving as extra pilots. After a few hours into the evening flight, the main pilots hand over control of the flight to the extra pilots to take a break. Without any issues, the plane continues its journey throughout the night, eventually reaching the skies of the U.S. West Coast. About 2 hours before its scheduled landing time, around 9 in the morning, control of the plane is handed back to Lee Kang-kook and instructor Captain Lee Jiang. The plane gradually proceeds towards its destination, San Francisco International Airport. Due to some essential maintenance reasons, the ILS on runway 28L at San Francisco International Airport was not operational. Because of this, the Air Traffic Control, ATC, gave permission to the Asiana flight's pilots for a visual landing. In an ILS landing, the plane's autopilot system follows radio beam signals on the runway to automatically control the plane's altitude and speed. It gradually aligns the plane with the correct glide slope and guides it for a landing on the runway. Exactly, during a visual landing, the pilots manually control the plane's speed, height, and direction while aligning the plane with the glide slope of the runway and bringing it in for a landing. During a visual landing, it's crucial for the pilots to carefully keep the plane aligned with the runway's glide slope to ensure a proper landing. If, for some reason, the plane goes above the glide slope, it will land quite far down on the runway. Conversely, if the plane drops below the glide slope, it may crash before the runway even begins. So, precise control is essential in visual landings. Around 11:21 in the morning, the ATC grants the pilots final permission for a visual landing on runway 28L while maintaining a speed of 180 knots. On that day, the weather at San Francisco International Airport was completely clear, and as a result, the visibility around the runway was approximately 16 kilometers. The weather was indeed perfect for a visual landing on that day, and as a result, both the air traffic control and the pilots were considering a smooth and safe landing without any concerns. As we mentioned at the beginning of the video, Captain Lee Kang-kook had limited experience in flying the Boeing 777 plane. This is why he was feeling a bit nervous about the visual approach and landing. However, since this was a check flight for Captain Lee Kang-kook, and to avoid creating a negative impression, he chose not to share his nervousness with the senior captain sitting beside him. If they had shared this information with the instructor captain sitting next to them, perhaps the incident might not have escalated into such a major accident. Captain Lee Kang was following the Precision Approach Path Indicators (PAPI) lights on runway 28L to guide the plane towards the runway. Usually, if there are 4 PAPI lights on the runway, with 2 of them being red and 2 of them being white, it indicates that the plane is approaching the runway at the correct glide slope. However, the Asiana flight was slightly above its glide slope. The plane was still flying at an altitude of approximately 3,600 feet, about 11 miles away from the runway. Within the next 5 miles, the plane needed to reduce its altitude to below 1,800 feet. Seeing this, Captain Lee Kang-kook rapidly started reducing the plane's altitude. As a result, the plane began descending at a speed of 1,000 feet per minute. To reduce the plane's speed, Captain Lee Kang-kook instructed Captain Lee Zhong to lower the landing gear. This would increase the drag force due to the landing gear, slowing down the plane's speed and allowing it to descend more rapidly. The plane was now descending at a rate of approximately 1,500 feet per minute, and due to the autopilot mode being off, the plane's speed was decreasing rapidly. Because of this rapid descent and continuously decreasing speed, the plane fell below the glide slope. 3 of the PAPI lights on the runway were white and 1 was red. Indeed, the arrangement of the PAPI lights indicated that the plane had fallen below its glide slope. The 3 pilots sitting with the captain had also realized by this point that the plane's speed and altitude had dropped significantly. As the Asiana flight approached the seawall at the end of the runway, it was flying at an altitude of 180 feet above the water. The plane's speed had gradually decreased to 118 knots. Due to the extremely low speed, the plane started to approach a stall condition rapidly. This caused the captain's control stick to vibrate significantly. Upon seeing this, the captain quickly attempted to raise the nose of the plane and increase the engine speed in an effort to regain altitude and perform a go-around. By that time, it was already too late. With the plane skimming above the water, it collided with the seawall at the end of the runway. Upon impact with the seawall, the rear section of the plane and the left engine separated from the aircraft. As a result, 2 passengers and 4 flight crew members seated in the rear section of the plane were thrown out of the aircraft. The plane started skidding rapidly on the runway. After a brief period, the rear section of the plane lifted off the ground again, causing the aircraft to rotate 360 degrees and collide with the ground alongside the runway. A dense cloud of smoke and debris rises in all directions, and finally, the heavy Boeing 777 comes to a stop on the right side of the runway. It could indeed be considered a miraculous outcome that despite such a severe crash, most of the people on board the plane survived. Despite being severely injured in the crash, all the cabin crew members displayed great courage by promptly initiating the evacuation of passengers from the plane. Soon, the firefighters and ambulances arrived at the scene and began transporting the injured individuals to the hospital. Unfortunately, in the chaos, a firefighter's truck tires rolled over a passenger who was already injured on the ground. However, later, the NTSB revealed in their report that the passenger had already passed away before being involved in the incident with the fire truck. In this tragic incident, 3 passengers lost their lives, and more than 40 crew members and passengers suffered serious injuries. The 3 passengers who lost their lives were the same individuals who were thrown out of the plane after the crash. However, the 4 crew members who were also thrown out of the plane managed to survive. As soon as the rescue mission was completed, the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder were recovered, and the investigation into the incident was promptly initiated. Moreover, with so many eyewitnesses and surviving crew members and passengers, understanding and uncovering the causes of the incident was relatively straightforward. According to the report, during the final moments of landing, the pilot was unable to control the plane's height and speed effectively. One contributing factor was the exhaustion and fatigue from the long flight, which made it difficult for the pilot to make the right decisions while manually controlling the plane during landing. The pilot was held responsible for this incident because even when the plane was very close to the runway, but not on the correct glide slope, they should have made the decision to cancel the landing and initiate a go-around. If all the pilots in the cockpit communicated effectively and made decisions according to the situation, this incident could have been prevented, and maybe the lives of those 3 passengers wouldn't have been lost. Remembering those 3 passengers, we offer our prayers for their souls on behalf of our viewers and channel, wishing them eternal peace. If you liked our video, please encourage us by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. We are really grateful to you for your kind cooperation. Thanks a lot.